night to those of you who are chilling quietly at home on a Sunday afternoon. And for some funny reason, you are tuning on to YouTube Live. Let's spend some time together. If you are interested in anything that could be happening in South Africa and perhaps in the world generally. On Friday, I tried to go live, and twice I actually tried to do so because I had quite a few things that I wanted to discuss, but I just kept getting intercepted, so many interruptions. I ended up having to take some calls, and as such, I ended up having to not continue with the lives. I'm not expecting that I'll have a lot of people joining me today because I understand, the time of week and the time of day as well. So, which is fine. I just had I'm actually these days enjoying doing this thing rather than recording because, recording, there's a lot of work that has to go into it and into, editing, cleaning up the whole thing. So this actually works better for me. So the topics that we were supposed to discuss on Friday were very interesting topics, and I probably will need to make some other time to record a live again and address those topics again. But today I'm not going to address those topics. I'm going to address something else, slightly different, but still it's going to be um, just a little bit different, a little bit similar, and a little bit different. Okay, so I've got about 6 things here that I jotted down. If there's a seventh one, I'll add it on. But what we are going to be talking about is this situation here in South Africa of the migration invasion that we are dealing with. All right, we have been sold out by our government, of course, and as such, our country has opened itself up to everything and everyone all over the world. All right. So we're going to be sort of like tackling a few topics within that particular context. So we're going to be talking about South African white people, basically, or South African whites versus illegal foreigners. All right, because this is a hot topic with where this whole thing of migration invasion is concerned. South African whites versus illegal foreigners, and of course, by illegal foreigners here, we're talking about African foreigners, and some of them are legal foreigners, but it's African foreigners. And of course Middle Eastern, as well as your Bangladeshis and those other type of foreigners. And then we're also going to be talking about this whole thing of I need to just share with us to give us a little bit of an understanding. I know this is going to sound a little bit weird, okay? That's why I'm hesitating to even introduce the topic, but yeah, we're going to talk about it, and it's still Tartaria. It's one of the topics that we're going to talk about on Friday. It's still Tartaria, but we're going to talk about it in the context of this whole thing of colonization. Oh, it's the word is just running away from me, but colonization, colonization. So we're going to talk about Tartaria within the context of this whole thing of colonization, so that we can understand there are certain things. There's something that is so important that we need to understand where this whole thing is concerned of colonization. So we need to bring Tartaria into the picture so that we can understand this whole thing of race, the racial war, the whole thing of black and white, and all of that. So we're going to bring Tartaria into the mix. We're going to also talk about yeah, we're going to go a little bit deeper into this whole thing of race. Yeah. Then we're going to also look at this Berlin conference thing. We're going to talk about why is South Africa poor? Okay, we're going to be addressing that. Why is South Africa poor today in 2025? Who is it? Who should be blamed? Is it because of white capitalists? Is it because of the West? Is it because of our government? Is it because of foreigners? Why is South Africa poor? Okay, so we're going to look at that. And then we're going to explore, who is the real enemy of humanity here? because this is so important. It's important for us to really ask ourselves such questions and to begin to understand who is the real enemy of humanity here. Because, we are in the middle of a war. Let's just face it, whether we like it or not, somehow we just find ourselves in the midst of a war, an ongoing war. And as far as I can see it, this is something that has been, ongoing for a very long time. I think this is the first and probably the last war that has ever been waged. And it's a war against humanity, of course. And it's a very subtle war because you can't quite pin down what exactly is the root cause of this war. You understand? In most instances, it comes across as if, okay, no, it's a racial war. Okay, no, it's a war between several countries. It's a war between this group of people and that group of people. It's a war for oil. It's a war for minerals. It's a war for resources. So yeah, but either way, there's a war that we are really dealing with, and there's a real war behind all wars, and all these other wars are really sort of like war, but of course they are not invalid themselves. A lot of people will say things like, no, don't talk about this whole thing of foreign nationals, don't talk about politics, don't talk about this and that. But it's like, just because you are a spiritual person does not necessarily mean that you need to ignore the fact that these things are here and they are happening. They are just as valid as anything else. The physical realm is as valid as the spiritual realm, so it's important for us to address both of them rather than ignoring the other one. All right, so let's talk about the first point here, which is this whole thing of South African whites versus illegal foreigners, or foreigners generally, African foreigners, or black and brown foreigners. Okay, so now let's talk about South African whites. So before I go into let's talk about the South African whites of apartheid. Okay, so of course the apartheid government was horrible. We can all agree on are concerned. Okay, so that is established. But what we need to acknowledge with regards to apartheid government is what it is that it left for this country. Okay, because to this day, it's 2025. But what we are having, what we are living off of, this is something that is not discussed quite, sufficiently. And it's so important. It's so important for us to understand that as we understand that the black apartheid government, has done a whole lot of horrible things, but at the same time, 60 million people needed to be increased so that it can cater for the rest of the country, which is what is a proper functioning monetary system. Okay, so we had proper function. They didn't say, oh no, you know what, we are about to and so because of that, let's just loot, let's take. Instead did is they left. Okay, and so then the black government took. We need to acknowledge that we need to are appreciating certain things that we are now under capitalist out there, that they are just an everyday person like you and me. Yes, here in South Africa, of course, and perhaps in most, you understand, because of the nature of a whole lot of things in this world, the system of this world, of course they will have a certain South Africa. When you come across a white person here in South Africa, there's a certain type of legging from apartheid, because the apartheid system had put the white people ahead of every, like literally light years ahead of every other race in South Africa. You understand? And they continued to maintain that. They continued to maintain it even after apartheid ended. You understand? But nonetheless, even with those privileges, the typical everyday white person that you are coming across in the street is just trying to survive, just like you and me. You understand? They're just trying to live, and they're just trying to make the best of whatever it is that is available to them, just like everyone else. You understand? So, South Africans that are here, that are white, they are not foreigners. You understand? They were born here, and in fact, their ancestors, however evil they could have been, if they were evil and if they were part of those people that were participating in crimes against black people, whatever it is that could have happened there, the fact remains they are part of South Africa. They are part of us as South Africans. You understand? So they are not foreigners. They are not illegals. They are part of us. They are those, and it doesn't matter how they feel about us. The fact remains they are those, it's like here in South Africa, as a nation, are part of us nonetheless. And whatever issues that we have amongst each other as a nation, that is between us as the inhabitants of this country. It has nothing to do with other people. So, from other countries, the people that have come here and crossed the borders illegally, they have jumped the fence, they have done whatever, set themselves up in this country, and they have jumped here by the millions. And they have come and invaded our country and degraded it and destroyed it. We cannot compare them to white people here. And the reason why I'm having this conversation is because there has been so much that has been said on social media about the fact that why is it that we are always addressing, African, black and brown foreign nationals here in South Africa, and we are leaving white people alone. Here's the thing: we are not having millions and millions of white people destroying it with crime, heinous, horrible crimes, coming into people's houses and just destroying them, killing them, taking their things. We are not having, white people are not coming here and doing that. White people, they come, even when they come to this country, majority of the time, yes, there are white criminals, just like there are black South African criminals as well. But you are not having millions of white people coming into this country, and then, all of a sudden they have taken over, various cities, various suburbs, and even townships and rural areas. And then all of a sudden now, you as a local, you cannot go to those spaces anymore because the place is no longer safe for you. That's not what white people are doing. White people, in fact, they come here, only a handful of them, whenever it is that they usually come individually, one or two people, maybe a person might come with his own family, but they're not going to invite the whole village. They're not going to invite half the country. And here's the thing, here's the thing, at the end of the day, and how migration works is that the people that come into your country, usually when you allow people to come into your country, or when you invite people, you typically want to invite people that are going to add value, or at least they have no critical skill. You're not going to invite people that are literally going to be a burden upon the system. Those type of people are people that are usually rejected whenever it is that you are processing migration applications. You understand? So why is it that if at all, is what the country is already providing for itself? And in fact, in order for them to thrive, they have to sabotage the locals. They have to sabotage the locals to say, you know what? Okay, fine. The local is charging you 50 rands. I'm going to charge you 30 rands. You understand? That's not what white people are doing here in South Africa. You understand? So, and honestly, let's face it, if you are a reasonable person, I don't need to be having this conversation with you. Quite unfortunate that our government here in South Africa has sold us to a point whereby they are abstaining anyone's ass here, excuse the French. Okay, but I am being very frank about this reality. Do we have an issue with issues with each other? But we are not going to ignore certain things as well. We can still have issues and squabbles with each other and still be able to pinpoint each other's strengths as well. White people keep South Africa clean. White people are maintaining this country, let's face it, to a large extent. That's not what black and brown people are doing that are coming and invading this country. They are destroying it. They are literally, it's like we are having a pestilence, a pest infestation. That's what's going on. Everything is falling apart. Everything is decaying. All right. So no comparison. Let's look at the second point there. But before you do that, let me greet some of you, those of you who have uh chit-chatted here. Hi and welcome, welcome Thiro, welcome Thiro Manzini, welcome Schoon, welcome Kevin De Beer, welcome Jude, welcome Lion Dau. Okay, yes. Who is to blame? Who is to blame? There are many people to be blamed. Okay, there are many people to be blamed in this situation. But yeah, we're going to break it all down. Yeah, so the first two people that I would say are to be blamed are the government, of course. The first culprit is the government, and the second culprit is the people that are taking advantage of the system. Okay, because they still have a responsibility. You know, these people that are crossing the border illegally and coming here and demanding things in our country and destroying our people, they are also to be blamed as well because they know that what they are doing is wrong. You understand? You can't just say just because you can do it or the government should stop us from committing crime. If the government is not going to stop us from committing crime, then we're going to commit crime and it's their fault. You understand? You can't operate that way. You can't say just because you have the freedom to do something, then that means you automatically should be doing it. You understand that that's not right. So both the government and this foreign nationals who are committing all these horrible things against South Africans and South Africa as a country, they are to be blamed. All right. So let's look at the second point here. Let's talk about Tartaria, okay, because that's what I wanted us to talk about within the context of this whole thing of colonization, okay. Um, so Tartaria, it's so important for us to understand Tartaria, and it's something that is relatively new. It's a concept that is relatively new, but it's something that we need to understand because it actually plays a pivotal role in understanding this whole thing of the wars, especially between the races and everything. Because when it comes to, yeah, I'm gonna look at your chats once I'm done with this point. Then I will respond to you. Then we'll have a nice conversation. So when you look at social media, especially where this whole issue of Africa is concerned, the main topic is always that whole thing of no, you shouldn't be waging war or you shouldn't be pushing away your fellow black and brown brothers and sisters. You should be pushing away white people, okay, the white race, because the white race is the enemy. You understand? And I know this might not be a very popular opinion, but that's a deception, in my opinion. Okay, that's a deception. Yes, the people that are typically in charge of this monopoly, that capitalism or whatever it is that's going on in the world, are white, of course. Yes, that's what's going on there. But uh, there's more to the story. That's why we need to introduce Tartaria. Okay, so what is Tartaria? Tartaria is the civilization that existed before our civilization. Okay, before us. Okay, so you would hear stories, you'll hear a whole lot of stories about the fact that, the world has gone through several resets and all of those things, and we could be going through a reset even now and so on. We don't know. I also don't know. It could be the end of the world. Who knows? But the point is, there was a civilization before ours. Before our civilization, there was another civilization. And how do we know that? We know that there was another civilization because of what they left behind. Okay, we know that they existed because of the infrastructure and the architecture that they left behind. Okay, so we've got all these big buildings, we've got all this big beautiful architecture that exists all over the world. Even here in South Africa, we have that. And I can tell you now, these old buildings, these old world buildings that look like cathedrals, they look like yeah, they're typically called cathedrals and all of those things. It's some of them are government buildings, like your White Houses, and there's state buildings, and city halls and post offices and whatever it is that they are. But they have sort of like been sort of like, what's the word, redirected, reused or something like that. It's like they're being used for other purposes, but we sort of like suspect that that's not their original purpose. That's not what they were originally meant for. Even the cathedrals themselves, you understand. um how do we know that this is not what they were originally meant for, and this is not really what they were not built by the people that we are told that they were built by? How do we know that? Because firstly, these buildings, we are told some of them were built around the 1300s, the 1500s. Some of these buildings, we are told, okay, fine, they were built around the 1700s, the 1800s. But then at the same time, they are telling us that no, they only invented certain tools that would have enabled them to actually build such kind of buildings around you know late 1800s. So it's like, if you're only inventing the chisel and the hammer and all of those things, if you're only inventing those things around the 1700s, 1800s, and all of those things, if you're only inventing the kind of technology that would enable you to build the kind of buildings that have been existing here for as long as these buildings have been existing, then how is it possible that you were able to build those buildings back then? You understand? So then that just tells you that no, something is not adding up here. And then when you go deeper into this research, then you begin to understand that, oh, the reality is that these buildings have always been here. There was a civilization before that was much, much more advanced. And it's not only the buildings, it's technology, it's a whole lot of things that have, been discovered in a whole lot of old postcards and old pictures, buildings, and I mean, pictures that will depict, for example, the fact that we had much more advanced, a lot of these things that we now see as UFO type of travel machines, spaceships or whatever you call them. Those are the kind of transports that were actually available in that previous civilization. You understand? The fact that they were able to build this kind of buildings that were apparently pretty much part of energy creation, and they were very, very, like, they were buildings, but they were actually technologically advanced as well. It tells you that these people were so advanced that making such kind of flying ships or spaceships or whatever it is that you call them would have been something that would have been very, very easy, very simple for them. You understand? So we this was definitely an advanced civilization. There was a lot, a whole lot of things that they were capable of, that perhaps some of these things we have not even gotten there yet. And also, of course, the general consensus is that their technology that they left behind, we are using now, but in an inverted way, in a perverted way, isn't it? So whatever it is that they had, like, for example, we are talking now over this phone. We are using the phones to have this conversation, communication. They had other ways in which they were communicating, technologically advanced, but their way of technology was also healthy and harmonious with humanity. You understand? So they were much more evolved. So not only were they advanced, but they were more evolved than us. All right. And who are those people? Those people are people of different races. They were not just white. Okay. They were black. I mean, they were all over the world. So this whole thing of race, it's a new thing. But during the time of so-called Tartaria, because Tartaria is a term that we are using because it's one that we all are pretty sure what the name of that civilization really was, because we were not there. You understand? You understand? But we can see that this was a civilization that was there across, like, literally all over the world. You understand? Because we can see their buildings, we can see what they left behind. The buildings are similar. What they left behind is similar. Even in China, you still find similar looking kind of buildings, structures, and even statues. Even in India, they're everywhere. Like I said, even here in South Africa, in Africa, you find those type of buildings as well. Okay, so they were much more advanced and they were much more connected to life and to nature than our civilization. All right, and so as I said, whatever it is that they were using, it was something that was edifying to the human being, as opposed to something that was actually taking away from the human being, like what we are dealing with right now. You understand? And so now going back to the issue of race, it was not a specific race of people, it was every race. You understand? So every race of human being during this previous civilization was participating in that. There was no that whole thing of, oh no, you black, you this and that, oh no, you white, you this and that. There were different groups of people. Yes, they had, their own little groups where there are certain things where they specialized in certain things. This group specialized in this group specialized in that and everything. But they were able to work together. You understand? So the story goes that towards the end of that particular civilization, they were infiltrated. Okay, so that's how the reset took place, apparently, once again, according to how research goes. We don't know what we don't know. We only know what we have been able to extract from the little bit of information that is coming through. And so, towards the end of that particular civilization, they were infiltrated. This is why we are having this conversation, so that we can understand that the war is not the war between black and white. There was a force, there was a group of people that so this group of people are not just your typical everyday human being, even though they looked like your typical everyday human being. But this was a group of people that were representing a dark force that infiltrated them, and then they, of course, came and perverted everything. And then they perverted everything to a point whereby they brought that whole civilization to its knees. They brought about some kind of a cataclysmic catastrophe, and a whole, I mean, as far as I can see and as far as I've been able to pick up, it's a natural disaster of sorts that took place. Okay, it's almost as if there were some things that were even falling from the sky. It's almost as if there was some kind of a nuclear situation, like something like that, but something went really, really horrible. And so whatever it is that happened there, and not only did was there that nuclear whole situation, but it's almost as if some people were even what's this word? It's like, when you make a person disappear, like when you make vaporized. It's like even certain groups of people were even vaporized. So something happened along those lines where somehow, in a very short space of time, people were actually destroyed, and some were outright killed. And hence, you've got the stories of Malanch Break covers this very nicely. It's a channel here on YouTube. He talks a lot about the catacombs, whereby a whole lot of people are actually buried underneath churches, whereby a whole lot of people are actually buried underneath a whole lot of things. So, and then you see the pictures. I mean, those things are even tourist attractions. Okay, so meaning people go and visit those catacombs, and these are burial sites, but it's not like you've got tombstones or graveyards, or no, it's people's bones. And then, of course, they'll tell you a whole lot of stories, but when you look deeper into the situation, you can see that these are actually the remains of the previous civilization. They had to hide them somewhere, or they had to put them somewhere. And I don't know, it's almost as if they are parading them the fact that they've destroyed these people or something like that, because I don't get the part where they put them underneath churches and then they make them tourist attraction sites. It's like, what's going on there? Something is just off with that whole thing. Okay, but so that previous civilization was actually destroyed in that way, and then it was replaced by this new group. the one that is now in charge of the world. And this group, yes, but I want us to be clear that just because this group of people are white does not necessarily mean that every single person that is white is part of this thing. A lot of white people are fighting the very same group themselves. And I will say it once again that a lot of white people are just because of their race and because of whatever reason. But majority of white people on the street are just like you and me. And they are also dealing with the very like you and me. You understand? Because if you understand that there is a dark force that is in charge of this world, and this dark force, of course, is operating through people. It's people who have formed and created systems that are meant to oppress humanity and keep them in a very, very tight stranglehold. Then you understand that this dark force does not really care and nationalities that are not necessarily white as well. Yeah, sort of like an empty world because they knew what they had done. It's like they were sitting somewhere in some corner and busy destroying. Then they came in. That's why you see those pictures planted there, or they look like they just came off a train, you know? So the question is, were orphans that were left behind from the previous civilization, own people, right? So, but the point is, our civilization inherited this world. And when this group of people went all over the world to colonize the world, people went all over the world to colonize the world. It was not a racial thing once again. The world for itself, taking over the world. Okay. Taking over the world. Okay. Africa. Here in South Africa, and typically, but I wouldn't say they were Gregorian per se, but I would say that that's how they looked. They had curly hair like that. And then, like Greek, basically. They looked like that, but some of them had weird kind of feet, legs, because, the legs look like fishes. Because strange looking pets that look like chimeras, it's like the head of a lion and the body of something else. So these people were not Afrikaner. The people that they were not Dutch, they were not English. They were other people from the previous civilization. Okay, established country, as an established world, if we should put it that way. Okay, with its inhabitant having been, destroyed. Previous, civilization was still alive and well. They lived in the cities, but there was another group of people that were living alongside of them that were not living in the cities. You understand? And those are what we could typically call indigenous type of people. So okay, so they were the ones that somehow survived the cataclysm. The people that were living as one with nature, they were the ones that, that survived the cataclysm. The people that destroyed the old world, they targeted the cities. They didn't really focus in on the caves and or the forest or whatever part of nature outside of the cities. They didn't really focus much on that. And I suppose they didn't see this other group of people as much of a threat as this is of the previous world. You understand? So when the English and the Dutch came to South Africa, some of them, they will tell you, when we came here in South Africa, the reason why they say they found no one is because when they went to the cities, there was no one in the cities. Yes. Okay, but there were people outside of the cities, but these people, the founders, the white and the Dutch and English, when they came here, they didn't notice those. To them, it's like, okay, so these people are living in the bushes, in the forest, and they have neglected these beautiful cities. We're going to take over. You understand? And so now, when it comes to the indigenous people that were, living in as one with nature, when they came across the white and the Dutch and English people, they thought these are the old owners of the place. They recognize them as the previous people. They didn't see the difference in the beginning initially, until it became very clear that these are not the same people that they were dealing with. But initially they thought they were the same people. That's why they were even willing to barter with them about certain things, and do business with them and so on. They thought they were dealing with the same group of people, until they realized that no, this new group of people are coming here with a different agenda. They are coming here with a different mission. You understand? And then that's when because previously, with the previous civilization, they were living peacefully. That's even in America. The American Indians will tell you that they had a proper continent. But we forget, a lot of continents, a lot of countries in this world have been colonized. A lot of countries have been taken over from previous owners. You understand? But the American Indians, and of course there were other black people in America as well, that were originally just there. They were just living there, and everything. And they were having a good relationship with the people that were living in the cities. You understand? They always had a good relationship. Even here in South Africa, they always had a good relationship with people that were living in the cities. They didn't have this whole thing. It was like, okay, we are living alongside each other. You don't have to be a city person with regards to certain things that they needed. You understand? That's how the relationship was. It was an amicable relationship. It was a beautiful relationship. But then they were destroyed. And then a new world order came in with the reset. And this is the world order that is in charge of the world right now. That's what we are dealing with now. You understand? So it's so important to understand that the whole world has been colonized by an evil force. Let's be very clear about that. The whole world has been colonized by it's not only Africa that has been colonized, because this force does not only work through white people, it works through anyone that is willing to align themselves with its mission. And there are many people that are aligned to that dark mission today. Okay. So let's read your comments, and then we can go to point number 3. Lion Dao. Our provinces should have borders. Yeah, I guess, in a situation that we are dealing with, as a country, the way people are feeling unsafe, you end up wanting to put borders around everything, isn't it? Like, you just want to secure everything, because it's like, that's how unsafe it feels to be in this country. So it's understandable that you would want to have borders around. I wouldn't recommend that. I would say the country itself needs to be becoming an independent country inside South End. But yeah, I mean, I guess United States, perhaps that could work. I don't know. All deal with our problems together, rather than other people, now just starting to. It will be. It makes sense for us to actually have borders, as long as we have our borders, but we are still South Africa. We are not separating ourselves. We are not making ourselves, independent of our country, but we are literally still part of. We still need to have borders around the country. Provinces have borders. automatically, by virtue of every province having borders, that automatically bars illegal crossing, isn't it? Because as long as you are a province that is next to the border, and you have been secured, and you've got proper functioning walls or whatever it is that's separating, make it very difficult, next to impossible for and perhaps this is something that various provinces should be looking into as well. So Africa, as opposed to separating ourselves from South Africa. So indeed, we could look into building, various borders for various provinces. So let's go to point number 3 here. So the point that I was trying to bring across is the fact that, so this whole thing is not about white versus black, okay? Because as I say, if we're going to go by that, we're going to find ourselves in a lot of trouble. I would say it's important for us to look at people and see what force is it that they are aligned to. Is this a force for good, or is this a force for evil? Before we look at, yes, there are people in this world that will always prefer race over everything else, but let that be their problem. For the rest of us, I would say it's important for us to look at, what is this person representing? What force are they representing? Are they here to bring about harm to humanity, or are they here to unite us? Are they here to destroy, or are they here to build? Are they adding value, or are they, because if we're gonna keep going with this whole thing of, no, let's get rid of white people here in South Africa, and let's just focus on black people. This is what we've been doing over the past 30 years. We've been mistreating white people quite significantly. Yeah, and I know people will say, no, we haven't been mistreating white people and all of that. Well, in comparison to how they mistreated black people during apartheid, well, I guess we haven't. But within the context of a democratic country and everything, we have been a little bit not so nice to them. You understand? And now, where that's concerned, it's like we've been sidelining them in some shape or form. It just so happens that they've been fortunate enough to have the privilege that they have, that protects them against whatever it is that whatever harm could have occurred to them as a result of whatever madness is going on in our country. But we've been doing that. We've been sidelining white people, and we've really been focusing on black people from other parts of the world. You understand? We've been focusing on our fellow Africans and our brown people. We've been allowing them, it's been heaven for these people over the past 30 years. You understand? They've really been enjoying South Africa for the past 30 years. They are so spoiled. Now they even know how to cry to our government. You understand? And we've done that. We've done that whole thing of sidelining white people and focusing on Africans. And this is where we are now. It has gotten us nowhere. Nowhere. Because the mere fact that these people are black does not necessarily mean that they are representing a positive force, does not necessarily mean that they are here to add any value to us as a country or as a people, does not necessarily mean that their intention are positive towards us. You understand? So um when it comes to evil, because it's not a racial thing, it's not a racial war. This is a war between good and evil. And here's the thing: when it comes to evil people, they will use anything as an excuse to do evil. Okay, so they will use race, they will use gender, they will use class, they will use anything. Evil people will always find a reason to cause harm. You understand? So that's what we are dealing with. Okay, so let's look at number 4. Let's talk about the Berlin Conference. Okay, so now when it comes to the Berlin Conference, we have a situation. Everyone talks about the Berlin Conference that happened in the 1800s, and then they talk about the fact that people shared continents among themselves and all of that. So, and then they talk about the fact that it was the white countries that or the West that basically decided to share Africa amongst themselves and exclude Africans from that whole thing, because they didn't see Africans as people that were intelligent enough to participate in that. So it's possible that the Africans that were existing at that time, because remember, it was after the reset. Okay, so it's possible that the Africans that were remaining at that time, and not only in Africa, probably in other parts of the world as well, the indigenous people that were remaining at the time, it's possible that they were, what's the word? They were the what's this thing? They were the indigenous groups that were not necessarily, you know, able to operate or participate at the level at which, you know, those groups wanted participation. You understand? Because once again, if it's after a reset, and then you only have these indigenous people that are, you know, from that are living in the forest as one with nature and everything, then those people are not the same as the people that were occupying the cities and all of that. Okay, so but I don't really believe that that's the reason why they were excluded per se. I really believe that the reason why they were excluded is because this group that was, you know, dividing, and even though they were, you know, dividing Africa amongst themselves, but really these people divided the whole world amongst themselves. It's not just Africa. You understand? So the only reason why they were including other parts of the world, like for example the West, is because, let's say, America was part of that because it was already colonized. So it was already occupied by white people. It was already occupied by the people that were representing this force. And yes, unfortunately, they are white, you know. But remember, it's not, you know, only all, it's not all of them, and it's not only them. Okay. So, but they had already taken over, they had already colonized America. So when they are colonizing Africa, they are colonizing Africa because they have not yet colonized it. They are spreading it amongst themselves because it had not already taken place. Africa was a vacant land only occupied by people who were, you know, forest dwellers, kind of. But the cities and everything, they were there. But most of the cities in Africa have been destroyed. Okay, most of the Tartarian cities and places in Africa were destroyed. South Africa was fortunate that those places were not destroyed. Like many of them are still remaining here. But when it comes to the rest of Africa, they were decimated. They were like they were obliterated. Okay, so that's why the colonizers were able to apportion Africa for themselves, and then they decided to, of course, enslave the indigenous people that were occupying those various parts of Africa. So yes, that did happen, and was that horrible? Yes, it was horrible. But as it stands now, we are living in the very same countries that were created by the Berlin Conference. Okay, we have South Africa, we have Mozambique, we have Zambia, we have Zimbabwe, we have Botswana, we have Malawi, and we have everything. It's because of the Berlin Conference. All right. So, with that being the case, it's like where we are now, we don't need to be trying to change that. Okay. It's just like that whole situation of apartheid here in South Africa. Remember, apartheid people, they were doing a horrible thing. The apartheid government, the apartheid regime was horrible. But even as horrible as it was, it still did a whole lot of things that are good and beneficial. You understand? Like, for example, the infrastructure, the monetary system that they had going. You understand? There's a whole lot of things that they had established that just because they are no longer in power, we can't say now we're gonna destroy everything that they left behind. You understand? We can't say now we're going to destroy the railway system, of which unfortunately they did destroy it. But we can't say we're going to destroy the railway system. We're going to destroy the banks. We're going to destroy, you know, the electrical supply system. We're going to destroy the transport supply system. We're going to destroy everything because we hate apartheid. So everything that they left behind, we are destroying it. That's silly because even though we hate what the government was representing, there are other things that they would have left behind that we can still benefit from. So we left everything that they left behind as well. We left them as it is, and we benefited from them. So in the same way, this whole borders that have been created all over Africa, even though originally it was not the case, but right now, as it stands, it's working. You understand? We have countries that have been established, and everyone is settled in their own little country, in their own little part of Africa. They are settled. They've got their own president, their own prime minister, their own leaders. They've got their own thing going on. They've got their own culture. You know, for example, when we are talking about Nigerians, you know Nigerians are Nigerians. Nigerians are not Angolians. They are not Ghanaians. You understand? South Africans are not Mozambicans. They are not Zimbabweans. They are. We have those differences within us, and those cultural differences are important. And it's important that Zimbabweans remain in Zimbabwe and South Africans remain in South Africa. It's important that Angolians and Ghanaians remain in their respective places, so that we do not have this cultural contamination problem that previously we could have seen it as maybe it's not a problem. I don't know in what world did we not see it as a problem, because as far as I can see, we've always had an issue with each other as people. The various tribes have always been fighting with each other. They've always been fighting for territory as well. You understand? So, as much as this dark force and the colonizers could have had their own evil intentions with regards to separating, Africa and creating different borders and countries, the fact remains it's actually good. And for whatever reason, they could have done it, but it's actually working for us. It's good. We are fine with it, because we as South Africans, we prefer being amongst ourselves and amongst each other, and everyone else pretty much prefers being with each other as well. Even other people from other parts of Africa, when they come here, one of the reasons why I believe they come here as a whole group of them, they come here by the thousands and the millions, is because they don't really want to integrate themselves into South Africa and to be part of South Africans. They want to be amongst themselves. And even when they take over the cities, they take over the townships, you will see one of the reasons why we South Africans pull away from the places that they would have taken over is because there'll be too many of them, and they are doing their own thing. You understand? They've got their own culture going on, which we as South Africans are not part of. So there is a cultural thing, there is that thing. So we have that significant difference as Africans. And the various countries to which we belong, they help very well with regards to that. They make it work. It's easier for you to then like this, which is why this immigration issue really needs to be addressed as urgently as possible. Because it's good when you are being Zimbabwean in Zimbabwe. It's good when you are being Nigerian in Nigeria by the millions and whatever number. But it's bad when you are being those things here in South Africa, and worst of all, making it uncomfortable for South Africans. You understand? So Berlin Conference, people like to use it. Berlin Conference or I don't know. They like to use it as an excuse as to no, we shouldn't bother ourselves about these borders. The borders are horrible. We don't need borders. No, we need the borders. This is how you end these wars, these tribal that no, Ndebeles and the Shonas are always hating and fighting with each other. And let them fight with each other in Zimbabwe. You understand? And the Igbos and the Yorubas are always fighting with each other. Let them fight each other and then here in South Africa, you've got them fight each other here in our own country. It's fine. We need it in many, many other ways, but we do not need to invade each other's countries in order to prove that we are united as Africans, because we have never been united. Okay, we've always been fighting as different tribes and as different people found black people fighting amongst each other. That's how it's always been. White people found black people fighting among, and it's not white people that introduced battles between the various groups of black people. It's not white people. Black people have always been fighting amongst themselves on their own, apart from white people, which is another thing that definitely needs to be addressed where black people are concerned. Africans, when I talk about this whole problem of narcissism, I will tell you that Africa has a serious problem of narcissism. Just as much as, yes, every race has its own problem of narcissism. But Africa has a unique, because every group of people has their own way in which they express their narcissism. But the African way of expressing hate each other, Africans would rather promote any other group of people rather than promoting themselves. Africans would rather destroy their very own fellow, like an African family would rather destroy you. They would rather implode and destroy themselves as a family rather than promote and see each other prosper. And this is one of the reasons why Africa is where it is today. And we're going to address that just now. Why is South Africa poor? This question, this is number 5. This The reason why Africa is poor, over and about the fact that yes, there's been serious problem that has to do with this whole colonization issue. But the fact remains, as long as your president can afford the kind of things that African presidents can afford, that means there is enough money for those things, which means there is money for this president and this government in Africa to take care of their people. So the question is, why are they not taking care of their people? Narcissism. So Africa is poor because we have evil leadership. Africa is not poor because of the West. The West is a game in this monopoly. Everyone, it's not even just the West, even the East, everyone is playing a game. It's a chess game that everyone is busy playing, an evil, horrible chess game that everyone is playing. Their own countries at the expense of other countries. But when it comes to our own African leaders, the kind of chess game that are playing, or should we call it checkers, is that they are advancing themselves personally at the expense of their own citizens, at the expense of their own people. The West enemy, the biggest enemy for the African man is not the white man, is the black man. Is the black man. Our leaders are the ones that are destroying us. You look at South Africa, then people keep saying, no, it's the West that's destroying Africa. And I'm thinking, man, what? I don't know. I don't know what you're talking about, because as far as I can see, our leaders here in Africa, they've got businesses all over. Our South African leaders, they've got businesses all over Africa. And they've got funds all over the world. These people are rich. So if South Africa is poor, and if it's because of the West, how come we've got black people who are our leaders that are so rich? They live in mansions. They are constantly building mansions for themselves. They are buying luxury cars. They are living the soft life. So how is it that they can afford to live this soft life if South Africa is poor? South Africa is not poor. There is just a select group of people that are taking money for themselves. That's what the problem is. People are taking money for themselves. People are literally just looting. Africa is not poor. It's our leaders that are evil, that are hoarding the resources and selling us out, because they're not playing chess like the rest of the world. Because it's easy for them, whenever it is that things fall apart, they can always blame the West. And their citizens support them in that and say, no, it's the West. No, it's America. America is destroying the world. America this, America that. Here's the thing. This is the game. It's an evil, horrible game, but it is the game nonetheless. And it's an evil game that is being played out here in the world. Everyone is playing it. And if you make one small mistake, your country is gone, or you yourself as a president, as a leader, you die or whatever. But everyone is playing this game. So how come our African leaders, instead of playing the game at the same level as other presidents, they keep playing the victim card? They keep playing this whole thing of, no, it's the West that is oppressing us. It's white people. No, if the West is really oppressing you, why are you so rich then? Why are you so rich? Because if the West was really oppressing, they would have been preventing. The West is allowing you to invest in their country and enrich yourself. So why is it that you are saying the West is oppressing you, but you are doing business with them? You are telling, do you understand how much money our president and our leaders have invested in America? But they keep saying America is the enemy. How is that possible? They are not playing this chess game for the country. They are playing it for themselves. They are enriching and empowering themselves at our expense. Why is Africa poor? It's because of our leaders. The enemy of the black man is the black man. Black people hate each other. Black people have a serious, serious problem of hating themselves and each other, hating them. And, I don't want us to twist this thing because, Black people from other parts of Africa will come here to South Africa and they will do all this kind of nonsense that they've been doing in our country. And when we start saying, Abahambe, let them go back where they come from, then they'll start saying, oh, you are attacking us as black. I do apologize for the noise in the background. I've got kids playing outside. So you are not targeting white people. You are focusing on, you hate black people, you hate yourself as a black person. And it's like, just because you are black, you want me to turn a blind eye to your evilness. Just because you are black, you come here into our country, you destroy it, you give our children drugs, you kill our family, you loot our resources, you steal our medicines from our clinics, you open shops and you give our children poisons, you traffic our people, you do all sorts of horrible things. And then after doing those horrible things, you want us to look past that. And you call yourself Africa Unite, you call yourself our brothers. You are not our brothers, you hate us. You hate us. So then the only time when you want to say, no, we should be united as Africans is then we should be united. Enemy of black people. You are the very same people, leaders of the world. You keep saying no, problem that is, you are just like them. Every single person that you are calling evil, you are like them. You are one of them. You are the very same evil force that destroyed the previous civilization and is now destroying humanity. You are the same force. You cannot go around and causing harm on other human beings and then expect them to be united with you for whatever reason. That is absolutely nonsensical. Why is South Africa poor? Why is Africa poor? Is it white capitalist really? Is it really white capitalist? Is it the West? Is it really the West? And it's so interesting that people keep saying, oh, the West is evil, the West is evil. And it's almost as if they're trying to say the East is better. The East is better than the white and than the West. And it's like, y'all don't know. Y'all don't know. Y'all think the East is better than the white. Y'all don't know what you're talking about. You do not know. You do not understand. Oh, yes, these people are evil. Generally, this system is evil. This whole thing that is been going on all over the world, it's an evil thing that is going on. So you want to be able to pick and choose your devil, or quote unquote, you want to be able to pick and choose your poison. You want to pick and choose what is it that you're going to be compromising on. But definitely there are some players in this game that are much more wicked than others. And I keep hearing people, especially here in South Africa, that keep saying, we want to free ourselves from America. And I'm thinking, do you think there's something better than America out here, right? You think there's something better than America. You don't know. You don't know what you don't know. And it's going to be unfortunate when you find out the hard way. Let's look at number 6 and the final point, and then we will be done. Who's the real enemy of humanity here? Who is the real enemy of humanity? There is only one enemy of humanity, which is this evil force. I call it narcissism. It's a force. It doesn't have color. It will use color when it needs to, but it doesn't only use color. It can use anything. It can use race. It can use gender. It can use geographical location. It can use anything. It can use classism, elitism, anything. Sometimes it can even use its victimhood. It uses anything, but it's an evil spirit. And as I say, it can possess anyone of any color, of any age, of any group, anywhere in the world. You understand? This is the real enemy of humanity. And how it's manifesting itself in this day and age is through this thing called globalism. Okay. It's a globalist agenda. And you can even see, this is where I lose people, because it's gonna be like, you are too superstitious and all that. It's like, it is what it is. The first thing that they did when they established their order, their new world order, because we are living in the new world order, it's not something that's coming, it's already here. We've been living in it. This civilization is existing in the new world order. The new world order is the world order that came after the Tartarian civilization. Okay. So the first thing that they did when they came here is they rearranged reality. That's why I tell you, we are fighting narcissism, because the first thing that a narcissist does when they come into your life is rearrange your reality, your perception of what you are seeing. They make you see things upside down. They tell you that you live on a global world, on a globe, when it's clear that you're living on a flat earth. They will tell you that you are living on an earth that is busy spinning around, on just orbiting, spinning and spinning at I don't know how many thousands of miles per hour and everything. It's like common sense. Common sense. You sitting still there, you standing up on the ground, you can feel this thing is still. This thing is still, this thing is not moving, this thing is not flying. And you know that this thing is not round. You know it's not round, because even their own flags, their own logos and everything, they will show you that this is a flat thing. It shows with a flat thing. Common sense, like it doesn't take, the minute someone needs to explain to you weird explanation as to why is it that, the earth is spinning, but you still need to fly a plane to go from one place to another. And then still it doesn't make sense. The minute things become too complicated, you just know that you are being lied to, you are being deceived. Okay. And I know this is something that many people do not want to entertain, because we are living in that world where the order has been established that we see things from a distorted perspective. And so it has been the norm for a lot of people to see things from that upside down perspective, because the people that are seeing buying the perspective of the order of the time are considered to be educated, are considered to be wise, are considered to be intelligent and everything. So when you come with the truth, you come across as if you are a fool. But the reality is that truth and common sense is very, very simple. The minute things begin to get complicated, you know that you are being deceived. So this whole thing of, no, the earth is a spinning globe. No. We all believed it. I believed it for a very, very long time, until it became very clear that this is not the case. The earth is not round. The earth is not a globe. It's not possible. Like, there are so many things that, I mean, common sense, once again, it just says no, there's no way. There's no way. You know, there's absolutely no way that we could be living on a globe. There's just no way. Like, it's not possible. You do not need to be a genius to figure that one out. But you do need to be a genius, a rocket scientist. You probably need to have gone to the moon and back or something like that to be able to figure out that the earth is round. Okay. Because common sense will always tell you that the earth is flat. Like, common sense will always say the earth is flat. There could be plains, there could be hills, there could be things, but the earth itself is flat and the earth is still. Even what the sun is or what the moon is, you can see that there's a lot of things that you are being told that things are a particular way, but you can see that that's not how it is. So this is what we are dealing with. We are dealing with that situation where this force that has this intention of just literally just distorting our reality so that it can reduce us to literally a shell of who we truly are. Okay, by lying to us about reality, lying to us about who we are, lying to us about what this place is, lying to us about history, lying to us about timelines. We don't even know what year it is to, this year, this day. We don't know what the real date is, because they've twisted and turned everything. Typically, this is what the narcissist does, because this is a narcissistic force. It's a globalistic force. It's a demonic force. Okay. And of course, they're trying to destroy, humanity. They're trying to reduce the population. They're trying to take over with their artificial intelligence situation where, we are literally now being reduced to, I don't know, puppets and pets of AI. I don't know. And then, of course, we've spoken about the destruction of reality. That's pretty much what they want to do. And of course, we still have the right, we still have the option to resist. We have the option to refuse to participate, to play along. So in closing, I will say that I wanted us to have this conversation. I wanted us to look at these points here, to be able to look at the situation from a much more sort of like holistic perspective, to see that this thing is beyond just race. What I wanted to hammer, to say yes, we are dealing with a situation where the powerful forces that are evil and wicked in this world are white. Okay, that's the reality of the matter. But it doesn't mean that every single white person that we are dealing with in the world is, that problematic. Majority of white people out here in the world are fighting the same battle that we are fighting. Every time I look at America, because I do spend a lot of time looking at things that are happening in America there, and I see white Americans, a lot of white Americans, just like black Americans, they are also struggling. They are also fighting the system. They are also under pressure, oppressed by the system, just like everyone else. Are there racist white people? Yes, there are. Even here in South Africa, there are racist white people. But you understand that when you are living in the kind of system that you are living in, that we are living in as humanity, we'll always find some kind of an excuse to fight each other as human beings. You understand? So, and we will always, because we are also living in this system, there are a lot of people that are just evil themselves. You understand? And as I said, evil people will use things like race as an excuse to attack people, or to see themselves as superior. Evil people will use anything. Evil people will always find an excuse to see themselves as superior than you, or make themselves better than you. Or they'll always find a reason. You understand? But it's not just white people that are doing that. It's everyone and everywhere. Even black people are doing the same thing to each other. You understand? Yes, our enemy is white, but it doesn't mean every white person is our enemy. Okay, that's what I wanted to hammer home. Our enemy is white, yes, but every white person is not our enemy. And also, our enemy is not only white, it's also black as well. And it could be Middle Eastern, and it could be Eastern, it could be anyone from anywhere. You understand? The enemy is this evil force that is against humanity, that is trying to destroy human. That's the real enemy that we are dealing with. It's not just it's not just a racial thing per se. Okay, I hope this makes sense. I hope I've driven the point home as well as I needed to. Let's see if there's anything else that I need to comment to. There's nothing there. So thank you so much for spending time with me on this transmission. Until next time, goodbye.